Good evening, everybody. Baruchim Abayim. I can't really see anybody because of the glaring lights, but it feels certainly like a festive atmosphere. And I also want to thank our dear friend Rebbe Ben Shimon, the king of footages, who brought us together here on this special night of Rosh Chodesh Kislev, and our dear friend Reb Mendel Mintz for his extraordinary leadership, not only for this but for much more. Thank you. And thank you everybody for joining us. Tonight we're going to learn a sikha known as Kuntres Beis Rabbeinu Shebebavel. Actually, Kuntres Be'inyan Mikdash Ma'ad Ze Beis Rabbeinu Shebebavel, which is a term from Masechta Megillah, Daf Chavtes, as we will see. This Kuntres was published at the end of the month of Cheshvan, this time of the year, 28 years ago, Chaf Mar Cheshvan, Tafshin Nun Beis. That's towards the end of 1991. It was compiled and edited based on the nucleus of a few of the sikhs of the Rebbe, as mentioned in the Pesach Dover, Shabbos Noach Tafshin Mem Zayin, Shabbos Pinchas Tafshin On Aleph, Chav Ches Sivan Tafshin On Aleph, V'oid, and based on ideas developed from many more talks and addresses and sikhs of the Rebbe. Be'ezer Hashem, we're going to try to go through the entire Kuntres. It's not that short, but I hope to be able to go through it, including at least some of the ha'ara, some of the footnotes. But I think, as in anything you learn, especially a sikha, context is extremely important to be able to really understand and comprehend the subject. So I asked Rabbi Menachem, who printed this Kuntres so beautifully, to also compile a few Mara Mekaimas on which the Sikha is based, both in Torah Shebeksav, Yecheskel, Torah Shebal Peh, the Gemara Masechta Megillah, Sugya Megillah, and the Marsha on the Gemara over there. Let's begin with Yecheskel, because these psukim in Yecheskel are really the basis of the entire theme of the whole Kuntres. You can see it, the first source, Yecheskel, Perik Yud Aleph, Pasuk Yud Daled, Vayihi Dvar Adonai Elai Leimer. Yecheskel says, Hashem spoke to me, Ben Adam, Achecha, Anshigu Lasecha, V'chol Beis Yisrael Kuloi, Asher Amrulem Yesh V'Yerushalayim, Rachaku Me'al Adonai, Lanu Hui Nitna Ha'aretz L'Meirasha. What happened at that time, a little of the history, Yecheskel HaNavi lived during the era of the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash, through the Babylonians, through Nebuchadnezzar. Destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash happened in the secular calendar, 586 BCE, 586 before the Common Era. In the Jewish calendar, Gimel Allah from Shin Lamed Ches, 3338 since creation. It's an easy number to remember because it's Gimel Shilach, the year that Hashem expelled, He sent away the Jewish people from Yerushalayim and Eretz Yisrael. Gimel Shin Lamed Ches, 3,338 since creation, or the equivalent would be 423 before the Common Era. I know I said 586. It's a discrepancy of 150 years, which is one of the great mysteries of Jewish history, how this discrepancy came about, but it's beyond the subject of this shir. Yecheskel HaNavi was the prophet, one of the prophets of the time. And Yecheskel HaNavi in this nevuah was lamenting, he was talking to Hashem and terrified that this will be the end of the Jewish people. See, we're living so many years later, but it's important to go back a moment, at least in our imagination. There are no words to describe the depth of the crisis that took over the Jewish world after the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash. You have to understand that for hundreds of years, close to 1,000 years, there was always a center of Jewish life, the epicenter, the spiritual focus of Jewish life. First for a few hundred years in a Mishkan, mostly in Shiloh, 369 years, but then for 410 years in Yerushalayim, the city that David conquered and built, and Shlomo built the Beis HaMikdash. 410 years is a long time, where all of Jewish life focused on one place. There was the Aliyah L'Regel, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, and even though there was civil strife and there were two kingdoms, Malchus Yehuda, Malchus Yisrael, after Shlomo's death, but still, there was this one spiritual epicenter, the place of the Shechina in Yerushalayim and the Beis HaMikdash, and all of this is now gone. The Beis HaMikdash is destroyed, Yerushalayim is decimated, the Jewish people are exiled. It wasn't only the crisis in terms of life and death and suffering, of course. It wasn't only the military and political crisis that they lost their country, they lost their commonwealth, they lost their independence, of course. But equal, or maybe even more powerful, was the loss of a spiritual center, the heartbeat of Jewish life. And Yecheskel, therefore, on behalf of the Jewish people, expresses dread and fear of what's the future of the Jewish people. So Hashem tells him, the Jews who stayed in Yerushalayim are saying that they will remain there forever, and all the Jews who were exiled, they're gone, they're lost, they'll assimilate. Says Pasuk Tazayin, L'chein emoir, Koy amar Adonai Elohim, Ki hirchaktim bagoyim v'chi afitzoisim ba'arotzos, Va'ehi lahem lemigdosh ma'at ba'arotzos asher bo'u sham. Tell them that Hashem said, even though I allowed them to go far away among the nations, and even though I scattered them among many countries, I will become for them a miniature Beis HaMikdash. I will become for them a miniature sanctuary in all of the lands and countries where they will arrive. And it's in this pasuk where a new phrase and a new concept and a new reality is introduced into Jewish life. Like always, today we take it for granted. But at this point, it was an absolute revolution, and it transformed the landscape of Jewish history forever. It's the phenomenon we call today a shul, a Beis HaKnesses, a Beis HaMedrash. Nowhere in the Tanakh till this point is there ever a commandment to build shuls, to go to shuls, to visit shuls, to learn in shuls, to daven in shuls, to be together in shuls. That's not a phenomenon that exists. There is something called Makom Asher Yivchar Hashem L'Shaken Shmoi Sham in Parshas Re'eh, which we would call the Beis HaMikdash. Here for the first time, Hashem tells Yecheskel something new is emerging in the Jewish world and Jewish life. What is that? In every country where they will arrive, even if they will be far, far away from their homeland, even if they will be scattered in the whole world, there will be a Mikdash Ma'at, a miniature Beis HaMikdash that will be transplanted, so to speak, a miniature microcosm of the central Beis HaMikdash in every single country. And as a result of that, the divine presence, the Shekhinah, will never ever depart from them. Today, one can look back and appreciate how this changed Jewish history. It was the first time such a phenomenon was introduced by the Jewish people. Certainly it didn't exist by any nation, by any religion, by any tribe. This was a completely new phenomenon. And it was based on the idea that will be developed later. The words by the Mishkan, V'asu li mikdash v'shachanti b'soy chom, not b'soy choy. As the Alshich says, I will dwell among them, not in it. Indicating that if Hashem is everywhere, the Shekhinah is not limited to one place, fixed, and that's it. But wherever Jews will gather and create a space where they open their hearts and open their souls and open their minds towards each other and towards their Creator, that becomes a mini Beis Hamikdash in which the Shekhinah will dwell. These words in Yecheskel changed everything. And how can you estimate what the shul did for the Jewish people since this moment in Jewish history till today, in every country, in every city, in every shtetl, in every community? It became the hub, it became the place of inspiration, it became the place of davening, the place of learning as the Sikha will develop. Take a look for a moment in Targum Yonason. Targum Yonason is on the left side. How does he translate the pasuk? I said a shul. The pasuk doesn't say a shul. The pasuk says mikdash ma. It says a Targum Yonason. In middle, b'chein kidinana mar Hashem Elokim arei echaktinun leveinei amamaya arei bedartinun b'medinoso. I have distanced them into many nations and countries. V'yahavis lohoin botei chnishto tinyon lebeis mikdashi. I have given them shuls, places of gathering. Knishta means knesses, places of kinos, gathering. Second, tinyan. Tinyan in Aramaic means second, lebeis mikdashi. Ve'inun kize'ed medinosa dizgiliu l'samon. This will be like a miniature Beis Hamikdash in any country where they were exiled to. That's why Rashi says on the word lemikdash ma'at, lebatei knishta de'inun yasvin Tanyan lebeis mikdasha. Quoting the Targum Yonason, Hashem says, I will create for them little Beis Hamikdashes. Those are the shul second to the Beis Hamikdash. And that's how the Mefarshim explains this. And as we'll soon see, the Gemara says this in Masechta Megillah. Because what is this Mikdash Ma'at? So we saw the Targum, we saw Rashi. Open now up the Gemara in Masechta Megillah, your second source. Chaf Tes Amud Aleph. This is close to the end of the Masechta. I'm going to read through the Gemara a little fast, and then we'll begin inside. The Marsha will do a little later. Be'ezer Hashem. Take a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Around 10 lines from the top. The line starts Laman. 13 lines from the top. The line starts Laman de Masni, Leis Le Shiur. Tanya, Beis says, Reb Shimon ben Yochai Yomer, everybody knows this Gemara. Bayurei kama chavivin Yisrael ufnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, shebechol makom shegalu shchina iman. Shimon ben Yochai says, come and see how beloved the Jewish people are before Hashem. Wherever they went into Galus, wherever they went into exile, the Shechina came with them. Galul Mitzrayim, they were exiled to Mitzrayim, to Egypt. Shechina iman, says Reb Shimon ben Yochai. Shenamar brings a pasuk. Hanigloi nigleisi lebeis avicha b'yoisem Mitzrayim v'goymer, a pasuk from Shmuel Aleph. I have revealed myself to your father, to the home of your father when he was in Egypt. Galu lebavel shchina imam shenemar lemanchem shulachti bavela. Because of you, I was sent. The Shechina was sent in Bavel. Don't think it's one way. When they went to Galus, the Shechina went with them. When they're going to be redeemed, the Shechina is also going to be with them. Shechina goes into exile with them, and the Shechina experiences Geula with them. Shenemar, v'shav Hashem alekecha shvuscha, v'richamecha, v'heishiv loy nemar ela v'shav malamesh HaKadosh Baruch Hu shav iman mebein hagoluyos. Doesn't say Hashem will return, will bring back the exiles. It says v'shav Hashem, not v'heishiv, not he will bring them back. He will return, v'shav, he himself will return with the exiles from the Goliaths. Frag the Gemara beBavel heicha. You just said that when they went to Bavel, the Shechina went with them. Where? Where is the Shechina in Bavel? Where is the Shechina in Bavel? What's the question? Well, where is the Shechina? The Shechina is everywhere. So the Marsha in Chidushei Agadas explains. It's going to be quoted in the Sikha. I'm not going to read it inside now, but I'm telling you what the Marsha says. What's pshat in the question? It says, what does it mean, Shechina iman? Wherever, when they weren't in Bavel, the Shechina wasn't there. The Shechina is everywhere. Malay chalar, it's kvoida. The pshat is, Galul Bavel Shechina iman means that even in Bavel, the Shechina lives with them. The Jewish people are still connected to the Shechina. It's not that Hashem is everywhere, but it's completely not accessible. Shechina Iman means the Shechina of the Beis HaMikdash of Yerushalayim comes with them. Jews can live with God also in Galus. This Abaye says, Heiche, where is that primary place in Bavel where there's his Galus, where one can tap into the divine presence, to the divine consciousness, to the inner soul of the cosmos of existence. That's how the Maharsha explains it. Amar Abaye bebechnishte du Hutzal. The shul in a place, a town in Bavel, present-day Iraq, called Hutzal. And one more place. Ubebechnishte the Shaf v'Yosef ben Hardah. A shul named Shaf and Yosef in the city of Nehardah. What does it mean, a Shaf v'Yosef and Hardah? In some places in Gemara, Rashi says that was the name of the shul. It had a name, Shaf v'Yosef. Here Rashi says, fascinating interpretation. We already have it in a letter of Reb Shreir Gon and in Aruch. Rashi says as follows, take a look. It's the third line from the top in the Breit Teshuris for Rashi. The Shaf v'Yosef. What does Shaf and Yosef mean? Shaf means removed. Yosef means sits, dwells. Beis HaKnesses, the Shaf, it was removed. V'Yosef, and it came, it arrived, it settled. Zok Rashi, a fascinating story. Ubana Yechanya v'Sayata me'avonim v'afor she'eviu imon begalusam. Lekayem ashenema kirotzu avodechas avoneh v'safara yichaynenu. Yechanya was the king of Judea, the king of Yehuda. As everybody knows, the pasuk in Megillah, 11 years before Nebuchadnezzar destroyed the Beis HaMikdash and exiled the other Jews, he first exiled Yechanya. He also exiled many of the great Talmidei Chachamim and the Nevi'im, including Mordechai. Asher Higla, what we say in the Megillah, Im Hagoyla, Asher Hugla, with Nechanya Melech Yehuda through Nebuchadnezzar, Melech Bavel. Yechanya and his chevra and his group don't leave Stam. Rashi says they take the stones, they take the earth from Yerushalayim. Rabbi Gon says it wasn't only from Yerushalayim, it was from the Beis HaMikdash, from the Harabayis, and they bring it with them to Bavel. The pasuk says in Tehillim, your servants cherished the stones in the earth. Mazel Tov. With these stones and this earth, they build a new shul. Where? In Ardah. So what's this shul called? Shaf v'Yosef. What's Pshat Shaf? It's not a shul that was built here with a local contractor from local material. This is a shul that was physically, the fabric, the material, the chaymer, the stones and the earth was removed, the mortar, the clay was removed from the Beis HaMikdash and brought to Nardah, and this became the shul in Nardah. Says Abaye, this is the Bavel Heicha, this is the Galil Bavel Shechina Iman. There's the shul of Hutzal, and there's the shul of Yosef, the Shaf v'Yosef ben Ardah. There's another Rashi elsewhere in Shas where Rashi says that it was destroyed a few times and rebuilt in Ardah. That's why it's called Shaf v'Yosef. It was removed, it was destroyed, and they brought it back, rebuilt it and destroyed and rebuilt it. In addition to what Rashi says here. Just for the sake of reference, where is Nahardah? Nahardah is in Bavel. It's associated today with a city in Iraq known as Anbar, A-N-B-A-R, which was either adjacent or identical to the Babylonian city Nahardah, which was a major city of Jewish life after the Golus of Beis Rishon and continuing throughout the Jewish stay in Bavel. It's a short distance from the present day very famous town of Fallujah, which is better known to many yeshiva bochum here as Pumbedisa. But Fallujah and Pumbedisa are similar, right? They're both strange names. And they're also similar, but it's not for now. Nahardah is very close to Fallujah and Pumbedisa, which is a central city in a city in central Iraq. This is Nahardah. Nahardah, therefore, was the place when Yechanya built his shul, And it remains. It remains for a long time. It's very close to the Euphrates River. Just an interesting piece of history. In the 1100s, there was a Jew named Binyamin Mitudela who travels around, and he chronicles his travels. And he claims that he was in Nahardah, and the remnants of the shul, this is the 1100s, the remnants of the shul of Yechanya Melech Yehuda, this shul, the Shavi Yosef, are still there. And throughout the decades and centuries afterwards, there were many different stories of reports about the shul in Nahardah. Says Abaya, this is where the Shechin is. Don't think I mean here and here. No. Zimnin hacha v'zimnin hacha. Sometimes it's in the shul of Hutzel, Beiknisht of Hutzel, and sometimes it's in the shul of Shavi Yosef ben Nahardah. The Gemara tells a story. Amar Abaya. Abaya says, Teisi li. I give myself credit. It's a schus for me. The chimerichikna parsa ailono matzlina awesome. Even if I'm far, a parsa. A parsa is approximately a kilometer. A half a mile, a little more than a half a mile. Even if I'm close, a half a mile away from Hutzel or Nahardah, I make sure it's a charayin chapen, and say a tefillah there. Abaye says, Teiseli, I don't lose an opportunity. If I'm a parsa, if I'm 5 parsas away, 10 parsas away, I don't do it. But if I'm within a parsa, I go in there and I daven, because that's the Shechina Iman and Bavel. The father of Shmuel and Levi was sitting in this shul of Nahardah. Asya Shechina. The Shechina arrived. Now you want to know what that means. The Shechina arrived. The Shechina arrived obviously means there was some type of revelation of the Shechina. Shamu kol riksha. They heard a commotion. Now I assume if I was sitting there, I wouldn't hear anything. To be able to hear a commotion and know it's the Shechina, you had to be the father of Shmuel and Levi. And what happens? Kamu v'nafku. They left. It was too intense. Reb Sheishis was also sitting there one day. Asya Shechina v'loy nafak. Sheishis is not going anywhere as it's. The angels come and they're scaring him. Amar lefonav Rabbeinu Shalom. Reb Sheishis says, Master of the universe, Olav v'she'enei olav, mi nidchem mipnei mi. If you have somebody who's on olav is, how do we say it in English? A struggling soul and not a struggling soul. Who has the right of way? Reb Sheishis couldn't see. Reb Sheishis didn't have an easy life. Says, the malachim are here. They want me to go away. They want to be here. Who goes away for whom? An olav or she'enei olav? Amar lahu, Hashem said to the malachim, shafku, keitavek, leave him alone. You get out of shul. You let the Sheishis stay here with the Shechina. Okay. So we have here the conclusion of Reb Shimon ben Yochai told us, Golu lebavel Shechina iman. Abaya, Reb Shimon ben Yochai lived in Eretz Yisrael. But Abaya, who lived hundreds of years after Reb Shimon ben Yochai, Reb Shimon ben Yochai was from the Tanoim. Abaya is the 4th generation of Amirayim, still lives in Bavel, even though this is already way after Churban Bayis Sheni. Abaya says there's a shul in Hutzel, there's a shul in Nahardah, that's where the Shechina is, and that's where I go to daven whenever I can if I'm within a parsa from this shul. Zog the Gemara weiter. Va'ehi lahem lemigdosh ma'at. Now you already know what this is. The Gemara is quoting a pasuk in Yecheskel. Hashem says, I'm going to become a miniature Beis HaMikdash. Amar Reb Yitzchak said, Eilu batei kneisiyos ubatei medrashos Shebebavel. What's this Mikdash Ma'at? It's the shuls, the places of gathering for davening and the places of learning in Babylonia, in Bavel, present-day Iraq. That is the Mikdash Ma'at Hashem was referring to when he told Yecheskel Hanavi, don't worry. There was a catastrophe, there was a crisis, there was devastation, but don't think the relationship is over. Don't think hope is over. Don't think redemption is over. There was a new phenomenon I described earlier, Batei Knesiyas, Batei Medrash Shabbat. Rebbe Lazar says, Ze Beis Rabbeinu Shebebavel. Now you know where the expression comes from. Mikdash Ma'at is referring to a particular house. Beis Rabbeinu Shebebavel, the house of our Rebbe in Bavel. Who's the house of our Rebbe? Zok Rashi. Beis Rabbeinu, Rav. Rav was the first generation of Amoraim. He was the transition period between Tanoim and Amoraim. He was a student of the great Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, the editor of the Mishnah, who lived around 150 years, 130 years after the Churban of the second Beis Hamikdash, and gave us the Mishnah. He's called Rebbe. He lived in Eretz Yisrael. His student, who becomes the first generation of Amoraim and moves back to Bavel, to Babylonia, where he was born, is called Rav. He's the Rav. He's like the Rebbe of the generation. The Nasi Hadar, the spiritual leader of Torah of the generation. And Rav builds a famous big yeshiva in a city in Bavel called Sura. That's where Rav builds his yeshiva. And as a result of that, Rebbe Lazar says, where's the Mikdash Ma'at? Hashem promises a Mikdash Ma'at. You know where? It's the house. Today, where is it? Rav didn't live in the times of Yecheskel. Yecheskel is the end of Beis Rishon. Rav is a few hundred years after Beis Sheni. So you're dealing with hundreds of years. But where's the Mikdash Ma'at today? The Belazar says it's the house of Rabbeinu in Bavel. Rav was the Rosh Hashiva of Surah. By the way, Rav had a colleague, Shmuel. He was the Rosh Hashiva he came from Nehardah. That's where the other shul was. Right? We learned about the father of Shmuel being in that shul. Abaya, who speaks about Hutzal and Nehardah. Abaya was the Rosh Hashiva of Pumbedisa, which is Fallujah, which is very close to Anbar, Nehardah. That's why Abaya said, whenever I could, I chap zecharayin in Nehardah. Just I'm giving some context of history so it brings it more to life. Darash Rava. Rava says, my diksiv, the pasuk says, everybody knows this pasuk, Tfilah l'Moshe Isha Elokim, Adonai moin ata yisalana b'dor v'dor. Hashem, you have been a home for us in every generation. Zokt Rava, my diksiv, Hashem moin ata yisalanu, elu bate knesiyos ubate midrashos. This is how Hashem has been a home for us in every generation, a home where Hashem is. Amar Abaya said, Mereish hava igrisna bebeis so matzlina bebei knishta, kivin the shamis lahad kamar David Hashem ahafti moin beisecha hava igrisna bebei knishta. Abaya says, I used to learn in my house and daven in shul. Then when I heard this idea that the shul and the Beis Medrash is the home of Hashem, Abaya says, now I daven where I learn, and I learn where I daven. Last piece of this sugya. Tanya, a new brais. Rebbe Lazar HaKapar Oimer. Rebbe Lazar HaKapar says, Rebbe Lazar HaKapar was a Tana. Some people say he's Bar Kapara. Some people say he's the father of Bar Kapara. He was a friend of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. He said, Asidin b'tei knesiyos u'bate midrashos shebebavel sheyikavu b'Eretz Yisrael. One day in the future, when Mashiach comes, all the shuls and Batei Medrash and Bavel everybody knows this, are going to be settled and established where? In Eretz Yisrael. Shenemar, this not everybody knows. Shenemar, the pasuk says, and he brings a fascinating pasuk from Yirmiyahu, Ki chetavar b'harim u'checharmel b'yom yavoi, as the tavar among mountains and the Carmel among mountains pass through the sea. As Rashi explains this. Rashi explains this, that Chazal understood from these psukim that these two mountains crossed the sea. During Matan Torah, they came to experience Matan Torah. But the knesiyos about the midrashos shekayrenim arbitzim ben Torah al achas kama v'chama. If these two mountains who only came a little bit, they wanted to hear Torah. Nonetheless, as a result of that, they become established in Eretz Yisrael. Certainly, the shuls in Bavel, where you sit and learn and spread and disseminate Torah, certainly one day they will all be transferred from Bavel, and Yikvu, they will be established by Eretz Yisrael. This is a sugya of Gemara. The Gemara has one more drash on this inyan, and then goes off to discuss the halachas of Batei Knesiyas in the next Mishnah, about Rosh Chodesh Adar Shecholi is B'Shabbos. This is more or less a self-contained Agada, Sugya of Agadata, at the end of Masechta Megillah, towards the end of the 4th chapter, Daf Chav Tes Amud Aleph. At first glance, we have a lot of different ideas that are not necessarily so connected with each other, more a loose connection. Starts off with Reb Shimon ben Yochai telling us the Shechina went into Bavel, goes to Abaya telling us we're in Bavel, tells us stories about two people who were in the shuls in Bavel and the Shechina came, continues to speak about the Mikdash Ma'at, an argument if it's the shuls or if it's Beis Rabbeinu, tells us about Rava and Abaya learning about the value of a Beis Medrash where he wants to daven, and then goes off to a new subject that one day all these shuls will be relocated to Eretz Yisrael. This is the Gemara. Now let's begin the Kuntres Beis Rabbeinu Shebebavel. I hope now the words Beis Rabbeinu Shebebavel resonate. You see exactly their origin, their source. It's always geschmack when you learn something to know the mucker, to learn the mucker inside, to see. Then you have a much broader and comprehensive picture. It's always a suggestion to everybody whenever you learn anything, whatever you learn Gemara, a pasuk is quoted, you look up the pasuk. You learn Rashi, you learn the Mitzudas David, you learn Mitzudas Si, you learn the Radak, you learn other Mefarshim. It gives you a breitker, it gives you an appreciation of any concept, any inyan. That's why the Rebbe wanted always Mara Mekaymus on every sikh.